Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to trace the journey of a microscopic organism. It travels from a tiny insect right into the human body. And the consequences, well, they can be absolutely devastating. We're talking about a parasite called Leishmania braziliensis. So, let's start with a question. What kind of tiny parasite carried by an even tinier fly is capable of causing such severe, lifelong damage? The answer is really at the heart of our explainer today. It's a single-celled killer, part of a group that causes what's known as a neglected tropical disease. But this one species, it really stands out for its destructive power. And here it is. This is our antagonist, Leishmania braziliensis. What you're looking at right now are called its promastigotes. This is its infective stage. You can see it's kind of elongated, it's mobile, and it's armed with that little whip-like tail, which is called a flagellum. This is exactly what a sandfly injects right into your skin when it bites.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the threat here, we first need to know exactly what we're up against. Let's dive in and break down its biological identity.
This right here gets to the core of what this thing is. Unlike a tick, which is an ectoparasite, it lives on the outside of you, Leishmania braziliensis is an endoparasite. It carries out its entire destructive life cycle deep inside its host. And get this, it lives inside the very immune cells that are supposed to destroy invaders like it. And it's not some complex, multi-celled animal like a parasitic worm either. Nope, Leishmania braziliensis is a protozoan, a pretty sophisticated single-celled organism. And that distinction is so important because being just a single cell allows it to hide and multiply inside our own cells. So if we look at its full taxonomic address, you can see it belongs to the genus Leishmania. But there's a key detail here, one that has some really serious clinical implications, and that's its subgenus, Viania. Let's talk about why that one little word matters so much. So here's the crucial point. It's all about where the parasite develops inside the sandfly. See, most Leishmania species grow in the midgut, but the ones in the Viania subgenus, like Leishmania braziliensis, they have this unique developmental phase in the sandfly's hindgut. And this isn't just some random biological trivia. This small difference is directly linked to its ability to cause that really severe, disfiguring form of the disease. All right, so now that we know what it is, let's track its journey. How does it move between its hosts, and where in the world does it actually call home? This diagram here shows the whole thing, the parasite's two-host life cycle. It kicks off when a female sandfly takes a blood meal from an infected mammal, sucking up immune cells that are just packed with the parasite. Inside the fly's gut, the parasite totally transforms, it multiplies, and then it migrates up to the fly's mouth parts, and then, when that fly bites a human, boom, it injects the parasite, starting the whole cycle over again in a brand new host. Now, throughout this whole cycle, the parasite basically wears two different masks. In the sandfly, it's that motile promastigote we saw earlier. That's the infective stage. But once it gets inside a human macrophage, it transforms into the amastigote, a tiny spherical, non-moving form. This is the stage that multiplies inside our cells, and it's what doctors are looking for to actually diagnose the infection. Geographically speaking, Leishmania braziliensis is what we call a New World pathogen. That just means it's native to the Americas. Its territory stretches all the way from Mexico down to Argentina. The real hot spots are Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. They account for the vast majority of cases. And while you traditionally find it in rainforests, it's alarmingly good at adapting to urban environments. But here's the thing. This parasite travels. In a country like the Netherlands, where it's not endemic, meaning it doesn't just naturally exist there, it's considered an imported disease. It shows up with people who have traveled to those endemic regions. Tourists, migrants, and as we're about to see, soldiers. And this data from the Netherlands is really telling. If you look at the period between 2005 and 2012, over half of the diagnosed cases were in military personnel coming back from missions abroad. It just goes to show how global movement and work exposure can carry these diseases far, far beyond their native borders. So, what actually happens when Leishmania braziliensis successfully invades the human body? Let's take a look at how this parasite's presence turns into a clinical disease. The most common result is a skin lesion. It starts off looking pretty innocent, just a small red bump where the sandfly bit you. But it doesn't stay that way. It grows into a nodule, and then it just erupts into this characteristic ulcer, which people often describe as volcano-like because of its raised edges and that central crater. But for a small and very unlucky percentage of people infected with Leishmania braziliensis, the disease doesn't just stop at the skin. It can progress to a really devastating condition known by this one word, espundia.
Espundia is the common name for what's clinically called mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. In about 3 to 5% of cases, sometimes years after that first skin sore has already healed, the parasite comes back. It spreads to the mucous membranes of the nose and mouth, and it causes this horrific, progressive destruction of cartilage and soft tissue. This, right here, is why Leishmania braziliensis is so much more feared than many other species.
Okay, so given the incredibly severe potential of this parasite, correctly identifying it is absolutely critical. And that brings us to the challenge of diagnosis. Diagnostic methods can vary a lot in how well they work. I mean, looking for the amastigote under a microscope is fast, but it can easily miss an infection. Trying to grow the parasite in a culture, that takes weeks and often just fails. Really, the gold standard here is PCR, a molecular test that hunts for the parasite's DNA. It's incredibly sensitive, it's specific, and it gives you a reliable answer in just a few days. And this is exactly why that accuracy is so important. A diagnosis of leishmaniasis just isn't enough. Doctors need to know if it's Leishmania braziliensis. Identifying this specific species is a massive red flag. It immediately changes the entire treatment plan, shifting from a potential let's wait and see approach to aggressive systemic therapy. Why? To prevent that devastating mucosal destruction before it ever gets a chance to start.
So once it's been identified, how do we actually fight back against this intruder? Let's look at the arsenal of treatments we have and the strategies for prevention.
You know, the treatment approach can really differ depending on where you are in the world. For decades, the international standard has been these drugs called pentavalent antimonials, but they can have some pretty serious side effects. So in places like the Netherlands, where doctors are often treating these imported cases of Leishmania braziliensis, the preferred choice is often liposomal amphotericin B. It's just better tolerated and it's highly effective against this particularly dangerous species. Of course, the best treatment is always prevention, right? This really comes down to avoiding sandfly bites, using repellents, wearing protective clothing, sleeping under nets. But trying to control the parasite at its source is incredibly difficult. Unlike some other species that cycle through dogs, Leishmania braziliensis has tons of wild animal reservoirs, think rodents and sloths, which makes any kind of widespread control almost impossible. And all this brings us to a final and I think really crucial question. In a world where people and parasites like Leishmania braziliensis can cross entire continents in a matter of hours, the old idea of a purely tropical disease is kind of becoming outdated. So how do we build health systems that are ready to diagnose and treat threats that can show up literally anywhere, far from where we might expect them? Just so you know, this explainer was put together using a Gemini deep search. For anyone who wants to really dive deeper into the science, you can find a complete list of all our sources in the linked Notebook LM document, which you'll find in the description. If you found this journey into the world of Leishmania braziliensis insightful, please subscribe for more deep dives into complex topics just like this one. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. What other borderless diseases do you think we should cover next? Let us know down in the comments. Thanks for watching.